Hi, welcome to the channel. Welcome back if you're a current subscriber. Today I'm analyzing the body language of Casey Anthony. I'm sure you know who that is by now, and this comes from a channel called Interrogation Archive. I will try to leave a link to their channel in the description box below. I also want to note before we begin that the audio and video quality of this is not something I can personally control, so I apologize. Let's begin.
So, I was afraid that some of what I said to them probably offended them because I told them that if I find out something that you don't want to hear, I'm going to tell you anyway.
Well, honestly, they'll respect that. That's just, the type of people that they are in the same way.
Normally when people start to rub their arms or their legs or any movement like that, that is what is called an adapter. Self-soothing behaviors and indicates anxiety. Of course, what we're seeing here instead is just her discomfort with being handcuffed. This makes sense. Handcuffs most likely are hurting her, but she's making this big display out of it and making sure that everyone in the room or watching in any capacity knows that this is uncomfortable to her and that she does have these handcuffs on and wants them off. At the same time, she's listening closely to what this interrogator is saying and putting herself in the place of someone who would respect him should he say something that might be offensive. It is an indication of someone who is trying to get along with the interrogator and seem very friendly, very agreeable, and very cooperative. Along with that, I want to note that this is, of course, a woman who has lost her daughter. And so far, we're not seeing any emotion around that, any questions around that, any indication that she is concerned at all about finding her daughter. This interrogation is quite a bit of time after her being arrested for her missing daughter, of course, but there still is no discussion about that whatsoever. That is a bit alarming to people as the entire interrogation, her being arrested in the first place, is about her missing daughter, and there has been no question, no mention of that at all. That's not of importance to her, no connection to that child, and that is alarming.
I know they are, but when I hit up with certain things, they don't hear it, and I understand that. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to say it.
Exactly. When you have different beliefs than somebody, it is hard sometimes to hear their opinion.
That's true.
That doesn't mean that they don't respect your opinion or the fact that you're coming forward with what you think or what you feel, so.
You don't quite see it up close, but there is a bit of an eyebrow flash around their opinion. She brings significance to this, and most likely there's forehead creasing going on as she raises her eyebrows. This is important to her people's opinions. That, along with her then starting to move her hair away from her face, again would typically be an adapter, an indication that there's some anxiety there. In this case, along with what she's verbally stating, tells me she very much cares about how she is viewed, and not so much about what's taking place. And this isn't necessarily an indication of anxiety, just her self-grooming.
Well, to some extent it's comforting to hear you say that because it was never my intention to piss anybody in your family off. I'm not in it to get a conviction. I get nothing out of it. I get zero.
Exactly. You have a job you're trying to do.
I found a few that it sucks both ways.
Yeah, I agree.
So, it is what it is.
Okay.
Where I get sideways with people tends to be when I turn to you.
Well, verbally, she's further indicating that she's agreeable, this is casual, that she's not offended, and doesn't believe her family is offended by what this interrogator has said. She gets a little more still. There are less movements at this point. She's slowly starting to give up on moving around in her handcuffs and indicating these are on and they're uncomfortable. There's a lot less adapters and illustrators around this. When I say illustrators, I mean movements and emphasis and in relation to what she's stating. When she's saying, you have to do what you have to do, that is an example of an illustrator. She's illustrating towards him, you have to do what you have to do. And in this manner, she places herself again on an agreeable side of this interrogator, being very friendly and very concerned with how he views her.
I've heard most people say that. They don't like attorneys very much.
I have many family members that are attorneys. I have no problems with attorneys. What I have problems with are, at some point, we have to set aside the rules and we have to find kids. And you know what? So be it. That's why I told you in the car. If you tell me anything now, I'll get up and say, yep, I heard it, that you re-invoked it. We can't use any of it. That's just the way it is. That's all that matters to me. And,
Interestingly, when he says, and we had to find kids, she shrugs. It's not entirely with her shoulders, though it's not very committed, just with her hands, and then her eyebrows go up in acknowledgement of this statement. Again, this is the part where we would expect a mother in particular to have some emotion around this, to either be angry and remember that, oh, right, my kid is missing or has been found deceased and something needs to be done about this, especially when it's a mother who has not actually committed the crime, actually ended the life of their own child. You would see more emotion around this, more aggression, more willingness to find out who did the actual crime. Instead, we see someone who is very casual about this. No emotion, just acknowledgement of what has been stated, with a bit of a shrug there, indicating she acknowledges that he must do what he needs to do, which is find kids, and no indication of her wanting to be a part of that, wanting to cooperate and wanting to find her own child.
Did another case that I was involved in, they lost a confession. And that's something I looked right at the guys that we worked with. I said,
That's not what's important.
who cares?
Yeah.
We found her. He's going to get what was coming to him. That's not my job. And
I also want to note that when she's just listening, she is very engaged, making clear eye contact with this interrogator. I can't tell if there's much of a blink rate or not. I assume not, especially given what I've seen of her and her trial, where there was almost no blink rate. And typically, a psychopath, someone who has antisocial personality disorder, does not react to emotional stimuli and would not have much of a blink rate because of that. I believe, personally, that is what we are seeing. But here in this interrogation room, I'm not sure. I cannot personally see a lot of her blink rate. She's very focused on this interrogator until he starts speaking, and then you start to see a lot of shrugging behaviors and what appears to be a bit of an eyebrow flash around acknowledgement of some things and some illustrators.
It's been a long day.
It has been.
How was my dad this morning?
He had our time.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I only saw from the meeting, got a chance to hear him talking to my mom. I spoke to him last night this morning for just a quick second before he left.
Now the handcuffs have been removed and she continues to be engaged in discussion with this interrogator. She asks very casually, how is my dad? It's with one hand. Now it's possible that her other hand was resting because of the restraint she was currently under with the handcuffs, some potential pain there and discomfort. Whenever there's an asymmetrical movement, however, that can be an indication of deception, of someone believing that they're going to get away with something or hide something. In this case, she brings up her dad. Her tone is very friendly, very upbeat, very positive, a lot of positive tonality. But there's this one movement, one illustrator is very asymmetrical there when she says, how is my dad? Asking about this as if she is genuinely interested in hearing about her dad. Now, this is someone who has contact with her dad and would not need to ask this interrogator about him. She's engaging in this seemingly friendly conversation, keeping it very casual. What we don't hear is, where is my daughter? Have you found anybody who is suspect aside from myself or anything along those lines? It's questions about her dad, how things went with her dad, and as some of us know from the documentary, she has accused her father of things that were horrific, and it seems that she's just trying to get information about what he has told this interrogator, and the officers never went involved. She acknowledges with that, again, asymmetrical shrug there, that he has to do what he has to do. An acknowledgement of everybody's role in this except for her own.
So, I talked to him this morning for a little bit. He was with Mark, and he was really struggling. I mean, you can imagine he was having a hard time. He was being called in to essentially provide testimony to indict you, at least. And he was really struggling with that. And I felt bad for him, I'll be honest with you. I truly did.
Well, I even told him last night. I know he was subpoenaed, and under the law, he had to answer whatever questions were asked him, and I told him to do what he had to do. At that point, if he didn't, he'd be held in contempt of court. I don't want to see that happen, so.
What did he say?
He just hugged me and told me that he loved me, and I know he was struggling with it even last night. So.
Her illustrators are an emphasis to her words and make sense, though they are still asymmetrical, until she says that he might be held in contempt of the court if he doesn't answer questions, and that she doesn't want that. Then her head is still again, there are no more head movements, and her hands are down. Then the illustrators start back up as she further discusses that he then hugged her, said that he loved her, and then you see that again. All of this seems very controlled, however, again, this is more appropriate for a psychopath, someone who has antisocial personality disorder. They're typically very in control, don't want to be viewed as weak, and are very interested in how they are viewed and getting more information so that they can further control what's taking place. We also see that self-grooming behavior as this interrogator mentions the word struggle. The word struggle seems to bring her some possible anxiety, and she perhaps doesn't like that word because she doesn't want to be viewed as weak and out of control. That word struggle is particularly, the word is invoking some kind of reaction out of her, or it's just that she is continuing to want to control how she is viewed with the self-grooming behaviors. Given that she seems to be otherwise comfortable and casual in this interaction, it's more likely that that invoked some sort of emotion with that word struggle.
I think it was probably remorseful this morning.
Yeah, I could see that with a little bit that I saw from the media, from the pictures and the little bit of footage that they had. So
You guys watching on TV?
then we watched online a little bit.
Really?
I try to stay away from the TV as much as possible. At least with the internet, I can scroll through, read what I want, and then just get rid of it that much faster. So
You anxious about today?
I have been. I mean, this is something honestly we've been preparing for from the beginning, just because of words that were directly spoken from Yuri Melich and also from Sergeant Alvin.
You see a few more potential adapters, self-grooming behaviors, her pulling on her shirt, putting her hair behind her ears, and then those asymmetrical illustrators again. She rubs her arms at one point. That very much was an adapter and not just self-grooming. She does seem a bit anxious, and then he asks her, is this making you anxious? And she says, it did, it was, and puts that in past tense. Again, someone with antisocial personality disorder does not want to be viewed as weak and out of control. And to acknowledge and admit that she might be anxious would put her in a place of what she may view as potential weakness. Now, this isn't an absolute, a guarantee. Just interesting that she does put this verbally in past tense, and her illustrators are emphatic of that, but they are also in emphasis of her being currently anxious. She then says that they have been preparing, again, putting herself verbally in a place of control. All of this indicates that she continues to care about how she is viewed, and being weak is not how she wants to be viewed. Out of control is not how she wants to be viewed. She's been preparing, she was anxious, and she's in control also of the media that she consumes. She states that she's able to just scroll through social media, not so much when it comes to television. So she doesn't necessarily care about television, but about social media and how she is viewed on there.
They were saying that this is what they were planning on doing from the very beginning, from that first day. So they wrote me off within the first couple hours. So
I don't know if that's true.
that was the direct words that they pretty much gave to myself, and even they said that to my parents. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say something derogatory towards someone, but
No, it's okay. We're just talking.
yeah.
We're just chatting.
So that was the only time he ever made any effort to try to talk to me one-on-one.
Now there are some defensive behaviors we see popping up here as he says that he doesn't necessarily agree with what she's saying, and you see her chin go down, protecting that vulnerable part of her neck, and more illustrators. She's overly emphasizing here that, okay, well, this is what took place, and her illustrators are an emphasis to what she's saying, but very large in comparison to what we've seen so far. She doesn't necessarily like that he has disagreed with her, especially as she has been trying to appear very agreeable, very cooperative, and just acknowledges that he has to do what he has to do. This is all in conflict with what she had said earlier, where he stated that he might have said something offensive to her father, and she says, I'm sure they, most likely her father, his team, or whoever he had been allegedly offending, would respect that, respect him saying things that might be offensive, and she very quickly says, and I am very much the same way. But she's not confident in that, and now we're seeing why that is exactly, and that is that she most likely does care if she's in control, and if somebody is disagreeing with her. How she is viewed is very important to her. So now we're seeing her become a little more defensive about him saying that he does not agree with her.
And it's kind of difficult.
It was kind of difficult considering.
Considering, obviously, in light of everything that's going on, and the fact that you've been arrested for other things, makes it a little more difficult to sit down and even talk to you. Mm-hmm. It's not that we haven't wanted to.
Yeah. But I do have counsel, and that's something that, you know, my attorney's always been a phone call away. And it shouldn't have taken it getting to this point, 3 months in.
Has your attorney ever told you?
Now we continue to see more indications of her being in control. She has this counsel. She has that, again, asymmetrical, but it's an emphasis with what she's saying. She has this counsel, and there's that illustrator there. Yet when he says it's difficult, you see that self-grooming behavior. Again, her tucking her hair behind her ears and her tugging on her shirt. These are now adapters, that she's nervous about this. And then she says difficult considering. She does not agree that this is difficult. And this particular word, again, seems to invoke some stress with her, most likely because she doesn't want to appear as weak, and something being difficult to her would put her in a position of being out of control. Then she says, I have counsel, and she verbally gives herself power back.
That we would like to speak to you.
And we had agreed, him and I together, that we would all sit down together, him and I, and you guys, and, we entertain whatever questions you have and discuss things.
We made it pretty clear that we wanted to talk to you. I mean, obviously, we can't come to you and ask you.
Yeah, understandably.
Further large illustrators there, as she says, we would all, and she moves her hands all around, emphasizing all of us. There's this group of people, and we would all speak to you. And she says, entertain questions you may have. This puts herself in a position superior to him, or superior to whoever may question what they're saying, stating that they would entertain this as if this isn't something they would take seriously, but they would humor, they would answer for the sake of just having answers out there. This puts herself verbally superior to anyone asking questions and questioning her. So this, along with her potential emotions around words such as struggle and difficult, her defensiveness there with the chin going down and protecting that vulnerable part of her body around him being disagreeable, tells me that she, again, loves to be in control, believes she's above everyone, she's going to get away with this if she did commit the crime, that she doesn't like being questioned and does not like someone questioning her authority on things. All of this putting herself in a position of power and control, which typically psychopaths love. I'm not saying she is a psychopath for sure. I can't diagnose her, but that is what I believe we are very much seeing here. Then, for a great deal of this interrogation, the interrogator is walked out of the room, and she is just picking at her fingers, moving her hair around, resituating herself, just getting comfortable. Again, these could be adapters in certain points if there had been discussion around something, but this is just her getting comfortable, her controlling, again, how she is viewed, and caring about her glasses, her hair. There's no sign of stress, no sign of sadness, no grief around this, no anger, or any indication that she feels grief about her daughter. There have been no questions about her daughter. In fact, the interrogator has had to basically push her to talk about missing kids and why she is there.
He's going to ask you a question. You don't say anything else other than the answer. Okay?
Casey, based on our conversation today, and I read you that form, basically just the same thing I said to Mr. Byers over the phone. If there's been numerous requests for opportunities to speak with us and come to a resolution here. That's why we brought you here instead of the jail. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, based on your request for us to call him and bring him here, he's here. So what we're going to try to do is give you a few minutes somewhere that's not recorded. No secrets, I told you. This room's recorded. I have to be able to approach my chain and explain why. But first, I needed you to tell him, in your own words, if you will, that you'd like to take the opportunity to deal with us like you've made that request in the past. So, is that something you want to tell him?
I told him the same thing we talked about before, that we would entertain any questions that they have. We would listen and discuss it, and if we have something to respond, we'll respond.
Good. Do you want to speak to me in private?
Yes.
So we can.
She is now leaned forward, connected and engaged with and listening to the men who have just told her that the reason why she's here is that they wanted to give her a chance to further discuss why she was arrested in the first place and what's taking place. No indications of stress. You see some forehead creases very vaguely as the video quality is grainy and it's also dim, but what appears to be forehead creasing and an eyebrow raise an acknowledgement of what he's stating about there are some questions, and he's going to give her the chance to have these questions take place without recording. She then leans forward, and there's illustrators again. She's speaking, and she says, I just told him that we would entertain questions, continuing to verbally put herself superior to whoever may question her. Now, I'm going to end this here. If you've watched this far, please hit the like button. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching.